Welcome everybody to another episode of The Passion Within. We've got Jim Perkins this morning, but we're gonna jump right in because I like to call him Perky, and there's a reason for that. Mr. Leighton Morrison, who I consider the living soil guru because he's done it all. Okay,
hmm
when James was on a show with us, Leighton called him Perky. And it has
hmm
just stuck in my head because
Yep.
he's obviously very upbeat and perky. But brother, where did that start? You gotta tell me.
So he's been calling me Perky for probably let's see, since 2010-ish, I'd say around there. So we're looking at about 13 years. And that started, basically when I met him and we just vibed right away. We connected and we are both kind of deep thinkers, right? You know what I mean? So when I had a deep question or a deep thought, I would go to Leighton and be like, Perky, what's up? Like, what do you got? Hit me. And we talk about everything, aliens, friggin' health, the world, the state of the world, everything, all those deep, crazy concepts. And then that led to when he discovered his new process, when he came up with his soil amendment and soil restoration process. He was looking for workers. I had dropped out of college. He's like, no way, Perky's available, because we had that deep connection. And
Yeah.
he reached out. He's like, dude, I want to take a look at this. And the second I saw what he was doing and saw the power that it could have in helping the world and basically where we were at, it's kind of the solution we need, especially when it comes to food and health and the environment. I was like, oh, I didn't even have to think about it. The passion was already there. That was already what I wanted to do. So it's kind of set me on a path for my life right there.
And that's fantastic. He has that ability with people when you really see what he's doing, it's like, wow, yeah, I want to be part of that. And that you guys have actually worked together, and we're going to get into who Perky is here shortly, guys. But Leighton and Perky have put something together that is absolutely phenomenal, and I want to just talk about that and how that came to be for
Mhm.
just a few minutes, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just recently launched a course, which is essentially a tutorial on how to practice Leighton's process of amending soil, restoring healthy living soils. And so this is a brief course that's basically surface level of the process that anyone can use. They can go in their backyard, whether they're treating their lawn and they're trying to get away from chemical fertilizers, but still enhance the biology, and or if they're just trying to grow a really healthy super garden. Anyone can practice this at a baseline level. But it started years back at Rodale Institute. I started going down to Rodale Institute with Leighton, and
Okay.
we started. He had a nice little setup in the back with 150 tilapia. We would harvest some of the fish shit and utilize that as the secret sauce in the process. And then when he disassembled that, he started to go to other farms and connect with fish farms to use their product. And that's where he came up with the fish brew. And so fish brew is now the product that is a real product is being sold, and it's utilized in this course. So it's kind of
Okay,
perfect the
I'll
way it all
stop
came
you
together.
there because I'll
All right.
just, well, actually I'll bring myself up a little bit because you mentioned something that I'm actually wearing the Fish Brew hat
The
and the
secret
Fish Brew
sauce.
t-shirt.
Look at
Oh,
that. It's
and now you're
fantastic.
talking about I just had to stop you on that note to point that out. But please continue. That he started working with Fish Brew or
Yeah.
creating, he
So
actually helped create it.
yeah, he basically taught Keith and convinced Keith that, hey, not only what you're doing with the fish farm is a business, but this is its own business if you can collect the waste and utilize it as the secret sauce. And he put together a few different products for a few different reasons, but this is an alternative to chemical fertilizers that can be utilized throughout farming. It can be utilized throughout landscape, and it's just loaded with biology and nutrients, and just gets the soil booming, super healthy. So to get us away from contaminating our environment, this could be key.
Oh, fantastic. And if I remember right, I actually have a link where you guys can go and get the course. I think you guys have a sale going on right at the moment. How long is that going to
We
last?
do. We were gonna go. Basically, it's 33% off right now. We left it up for a little bit longer. So if anybody's interested, if anybody wants to grow a super healthy garden or convert to or organic methods of treating their landscape, check out this course, Regenerative Soil Reset. Essentially, kind of works like this. You build what we call an eco pile, which is organic material, usually indigenous if you have it, so from the surrounding areas, and you layer this pile perfectly. You water it perfectly to hit a certain temperature so that it decomposes relatively quickly in a really healthy habitat for the microbiology to grow, right? To replicate, to regenerate. Then we take that and we mix it with fish brew. So you take like a chunk of that in a bucket, you mix it with fish brew, and
Right.
we water that, and then we screen it so the solids are gone, and you end up with this chocolate milk-like substance that you can inject or spray as like a fertilizer. It's kind of like a mud, right? And so you can be spraying it. It's kind of like, am I doing anything here? But then the results are just unbelievable. You're just adding biology back into soil, right? Because the chemical fertilizers and the synthetic nitrogen artificially fuels the life process in the soils, whether you're growing gardens or you're growing grass, right? So all the grass we see is synthetically grown, and that kills the biology in the soil. That compacts the soil. It causes all sorts of water runoff issues and
Yeah.
environmental issues on top of the contamination that it does, just to health in general. And so we need a kind of a new way. And I think that it's got to be one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, organic approach to it thus far. I would think it could be somewhat revolutionary in the organic industry. A lot of people should be picking it up. If you're trying to grow a grass and you're trying to grow a lawn, you look at the forest and it's layered with organic material, and that organic material decomposes and feeds the soils and the biology, and it stacks up, and then you get what looks like a forest, right? Layered,
Right.
brush and all these things and trees. And so if people want a lawn or a nice landscape, but nothing's feeding that soil, if they're stripping all the leaves and everything like that, well, they resort to chemical fertilizers as the alternative, right? So in order to have the sunlight hit the grass and get the grass to grow, you have to clear it, but you're stripping the biology, you're stripping the life,
Yeah.
you're stripping the foods for the soil. So what replaces that? People use chemical fertilizers, which is horrible in every way. Well, now this is an alternative. You can take all the life off of it. You can spray this little mud on there, add the biology back in, and it's a very cheap, cost-effective process. You build the eco pile once, and that's going to last you literally probably a lifetime, because you don't need much in order to make this process happen. It just comes down to the concept of regenerating nature at the microbiological level. And this
Right.
is how it's done, right?
Yeah.
Enhancing biology. And so that's really what the process comes down to. And that's what the Thunderdome comes down to. It's not just about utilizing this process, but it's about the concept of regenerating nature and continuously helping nature flourish, as opposed to destroying it, being destructive, contaminating it, which in the end comes back to hurt our health.
Okay, and that's a perfect segue, moving from the chorus and what you guys can benefit from. So, check that link out, guys, because it is phenomenal what you can do with that material. But you mentioned something called the Thunderdome,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that this is something that is your passion, my friend.
Yes,
And
sir.
so we're gonna jump into that in a moment. But where did the actual concept of that come from? Where was the beginning of the growth to this passion?
So it was Leighton in his processes and what he developed, combined with my obsession with what I call healing, health, and human performance. So I started when I was 14, really intensely getting into fitness, spending 3 hours in the gym, taking pre-workouts, all these things. And I just kind of went through the ringer with it. By the time I was 16, I had, been in PT and learned a good amount about health. And I just had this obsession with it, right? So I always knew that health and fitness was going to be a foundation, a staple in my life. And so it was my passion. It was very clearly my passion. I didn't have to try to get into it. But I didn't even want it to be the source of my income or anything like that. It ended up being the source of my income because I was good at it and there was a lot of draw. I was just doing a lot of it, people reaching out to me, and it ended up becoming a full-time business. which is
And
usually
I think I'll bring this up for a moment. This is your website because you're a personal
sure.
trainer as well, if I understand correctly. Correct?
Yes, right, right. And that's basically what I've been doing day to day, that and trying to, combine that with this whole soil concept. But yeah, that's my website. I got a lot of information on the training I do there, which hopefully we can get into a little bit later because it's very nature based. It's very about restoring our innate physiological design and being
Fantastic. Yes, we
less domesticated.
definitely have to get into bringing the nature into the physical, and because I've been talking to you behind the scenes a bit, and your concept of that is really fascinating, and it makes sense, and I love things that
Does.
make
Yeah.
sense.
It resonates with people when they take the
Yeah.
time to learn it. They resonates with people even when you get to the deep dive between conventional fitness and and the domestication of our bodies and what we're doing and how that's hurting us. It makes a lot of sense with people. But to touch on where the Thunderdome idea came from was I was doing all that. I was obsessed with health, and so in I had a health experience of my own with Western medicine that didn't make sense to me, and they put me on some medicines and stuff like this, and I was like, this isn't health. It doesn't seem right. So I did a lot of research and I dove down that rabbit hole of health, and I realized our natural form in nature is what provides us our health. And at the same time, I had this realization. I met Leighton, or I didn't meet Leighton. I started working with Leighton. He had just started this journey, right? And so
Okay.
when he started this journey and I came on board, he had a facility designed in Vermont that was just the most impressive thing to this day I've ever seen. The book about this facility, the design was this thick, right? I was like, you wrote all this? Like, what are you, crazy? And it was just so impressive. And it was just this self-sustaining, ecological masterpiece that aligned with nature in every way and was going to replicate biology and enhance vegetables and food and the way people heal and connect to the earth and grounding. So this unbelievable facility was, just so impressive. And I said, man, that place is the Thunderdome. Like, that's wild. Like, this concept was very clearly the optimal path for our health. It's actually the opposition to, the self-destructive behaviors that we are embodying right now in this nation, in this lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So it's the alternative to that. So this facility basically, in my opinion, was necessary. It was the key. So how to spread this? How do we just not have one facility in Vermont that just has, you can go there. There's already retreats and stuff like that. Like, if people want to get healthy, they can go out in the middle of the woods. They can go find retreats that are kind of off grid, doing their own thing, all organic, really connected to nature. But the general masses, most people are tied to this culture, this society, what we've built. So how do you take that concept and inject it and integrate it into society without having people to go out into the middle of the woods, right? How do we start to balance ourselves in that sense? And that's where the
Okay,
Thunderdome
hold on. Now, are you telling me that you have designed this in such a way that we can take this concept from what Leighton had out in Vermont and bringing it into our own backyards? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Our own backyards, our own just local towns, by essentially putting one of these in a miniature fashion, a smaller fashion, of all different shapes and sizes into the farms of our towns. And this basically led me to a different issue that it would solve. And that's the fact that local farming is a dying practice. It's everyone's. I read a stat the other day that the average local farmer is making like $32,000 a year and working 10 hours a day. Yet your local farming is the most optimal way for us to produce food. The way that food's being produced right now is toxic to ourselves, to the environment, to the animals that we're eating, and it's requiring a lot more upkeep and contamination to keep it going. It's traveling down an implosive path. The alternative to that is localized regenerative agriculture. How can we widespread and make food everywhere? I mean, down to even just the transportation of the food and the preservatives that are needed in order to get something to last 3 weeks to get across the world to eat it, right? It just makes a lot more sense. It's the solution to start doing it locally. And you look at local farms, well, the industrial model has wiped them out. They don't have any power. They don't have any resources. Most of them are struggling. right? They're not,
Right.
most of them weren't producing anything. And I directly experienced this. I talked about it on the last podcast. I directly experienced this by trying to connect with these farms. They were all like, you're spot on. Absolutely. Like, we can't do this. And a lot of them are stuck using conventional methods. So they're using contaminated soils. They're continuing to fertilize and do things that are suboptimal to our health, suboptimal to the health of the environment. So they're stuck, right? So while we integrate this concept of, like Layton's facility, this Thunderdome concept of self-sustainability and health, and integrating that into our society, we do that by teaming up with these local farms and reviving them, right? And getting them resources and getting them healthy living soils, leveraging Layton's process. So I envision this happening with 3 farms in every town. Why not? Like a small, sustainable geodome that essentially takes what we're interested in and what we spend money on anyway and leverages it to expand that farm to produce as much food as we can, and then, like you just said, in people's backyards, integrate into the neighbors' backyards. So we have this program where it's essentially a profit share, where people are coming in, they're a member here, just the way they would be a member at a strip mall gym inside of a box, except this place is aesthetically way cooler. It sounds way better. It's out in nature, and we can integrate it with nature, interact with nature, which is our natural form of health. We see that with grounding. We see that with sunlight. We need to get less domesticated. We need to get out of the strip mall, out of the box. So it's solving a multitude of issues. And while we come together and people start to understand this, they're almost pooling resources so that this farm that is producing nothing will end up producing all sorts of berries, all sorts of vegetables, all sorts of fruits. It'll have chickens, meat. Maybe one specializes in dairy and it's teamed up with 5 that are around it, and that one specializes in vegetables and that one specializes in this, and they all work together to have way more to offer the local community, food wise, and almost like mastering local food production, not just doing it, but taking it to the next level with passion,
Yes.
about how it's doing it, like competition. I always said, like, imagine if it was competition and like that was integrated into schools. You see all this meaningless competition. This would be very meaningful competition. Like, imagine if even, like I said, pro athletes looked at this concept and said, okay, yeah, there's starving people, there's contaminated foods, our environment's a mess. We need to kind of make this shift, or at least re-empower and reintegrate the practice of local farming. What if they kind of started it and then competed with each other to produce the coolest, best gardens, best town, best surrounding, community? Whose community is producing the most food, the best food, and who's now cooking that food and offering really cost-effective, healthy meals, just taking local food production to the next level. Now, I talk about gaining resources and leveraging that to make this happen. This dome would be an attraction, right? So you put up the dome, you have a nice outdoor area, maybe a cafe, and inside the dome, we host what I do on the day to day. So instead of doing it in a strip mall, we host exercise classes, right? We host educational courses on health, on all these things that people are interested in, whether it's astrology, this, that. And we host events, right? Like, people would love to go out, listen to live music on, at a farm or out in the nature, as opposed to just at the bar or anything like that, downtown. Get it back out into the suburbs a little bit and make an attraction that people want to be a part of, that people want to go to. And I do all of those things. I DJ. I know how to, have a good time there. A lot of education, whether it be fitness, health, food, nutrition, farming, soil. And then I'm constantly teaching exercise. So it's like, I already had that. And I wanted to start it with a small dome where I just do all of these things and try to build it from the inside out there. So these things will get people together to build a community, to gain resources, to enhance and regenerate localized regenerative agriculture from farms to people's backyards and beyond.
And you're also bringing the fitness into it, which we're going to go to in a second. But Silly Lily had a very good question. Is this viable for colder climates, or is it just southern climates?
Yeah, we just have to adapt and act accordingly. So, we'd obviously only be able to grow vegetables certain times of the year. Maybe we master how to freeze vegetables and how to freeze foods and make things last a little bit longer, the way kind of indigenous tribes have, and stuff like that, people that have lived and faced these challenges in the past. So it's absolutely doable everywhere. It would just change, and the model would change, and how we're executing it would change.
Okay, now you're building a geodesic dome, so it's basically like a greenhouse. I think if you're doing a little bit of supplemental lighting in that greenhouse, that you could grow even in northern Canada year round, because
Mm-hmm.
you're as long as you've got a little bit of a heat. Because I know lettuce can literally freeze, and then as the sun comes up in the morning, it unfreezes and starts growing again. It just slows the growth process down.
Right, right. Yeah, and it stays alive. And that is a fantastic point that goes to the last question. So, like up north, well, maybe we would have, in the winters at least, maybe we would put a clear cover over the dome. We take the other one off, we put a clear cover. So now people that are stuck inside all day are getting sunlight. They're just reintegrating with nature. So they go to work out and their sun's coming through in this dome, in this clear dome.
Sorry, I my wife was coming down to chat for something,
No
um,
worries.
but it is the environment that you're in is going to be suitable for changing that. And in the California, you can put on a shade cloth, in the summertime, and here
Exactly.
um, we can add extra insulation. I was watching one gentleman several years ago, and he said that every time you put a layer on, like a layer of plastic, you're basically gaining, I believe it was two temperate zones. So he was able to keep summer vegetables growing at a slower pace in the middle of winter, because he was
Wow.
able to keep the temperature up.
See that
So
sunlight. That is so cool. So cool. And imagine, like, being up north and being inside most of the time, right? In the winter, people are lacking vitamin D. Look what happened with COVID. There was a massive deficiency in vitamin D, and that's something that can be solved by sunlight. We need to be less domesticated, less inside the box, more integrated with nature, and balance that in order to optimize our own health, instead of seeking quick fix solutions that come with an absolute multitude of side effects.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, and
and
this
it's
path
this.
is clear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and let's go a little bit more into the other things that you're doing, and one of your other deep passions is exercise, and you've brought that philosophy into the Thunderdome as well. And I'd like to cover that a little bit more,
Yeah.
because it, getting that energy flowing. Are you thinking there's an actual connection between the plants and the energy while you're exercising that you're exuding? Or have you even looked at that?
Yeah. The quality of air, right? Being inside of a box, being outside, being in nature, being in the woods. We know that even just something like walking through the woods and having all that plant life surrounding you can have health benefits. Being grounded on the earth is shown to have unbelievable health benefits. And so reintegrating nature in all these ways is our optimal path for health. And you look at just the conventional path of health, it's lacking all of these things. It's seeking quick fixes for, pretty much all of it, all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. And Silly Lily one has a couple of points here. Um, she loves the idea of Leighton's chorus. She's actually been following Leighton for a long time and loves his horizontal system. And she's talking her failure of her garden from last year. She's going to switch over, and then she's hoping that Fish Brew is going to actually come into Canada. I know they were working on it. I don't know if you've heard anything from
Are they?
Keith?
No, I could talk to Keith and get an update on that. I'm sure they're gonna, probably do whatever they can to sell it in Canada too. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like Leighton's saying, it's a secret sauce that makes a lot of sense. The aquatic aspect makes a lot of sense when it comes to all microbiology and integrating that. And so it should be something that continues to grow and utilize.
yeah, I'm hoping that they're going to be able to actually ship around the world, because it's something that is so important for us to find a source where we can quickly add the biology back into the system. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why, Leighton's chorus combined with fish brew is taking it to the next level.
Next
And
level.
then you're taking it to a totally new level.
Utilizing, leveraging that process through what we
Yeah.
do on the day to day, right? And you just asked about my other passions and fitness and how that ties into it, and how I mentioned earlier, it's a very natural form of fitness. It's a fitness that is designed to restore our innate physiological design, to align with nature, because we are designed a certain way. We're designed to do certain things, right? And those are built around primarily survival, the way everything in nature adapts and evolves over time to gain certain things. Like plants have defense mechanisms that release chemicals because they can't fight anything, right?
Yeah.
And then animals develop skills or ways of killing their enemies or defending their enemies, porcupines, whatever it is. We are the same way. We are animals on this earth, and the more we ignorantly disregard that, the more domesticated we become, and the more compromised our health has become, and our
Yeah.
humanity, the way we feel. I said, you know, right now, I think people are more spiritually compromised, and internally, I think their nervous system primarily is more compromised than it's ever been in the history of the world. And I've had people argue and say, well, it's easier to live now than ever. I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying we're not grateful. It's great, but there's so much stimuli, especially in the past 20 years. There's so much stimulation that we have this unbelievable jump in our stress response, in our sensory systems, in our constantly thinking brains and perceiving all these things, that it has completely changed our inner being. We've been pulled into this world of stress response, and a lot of people can't parasympathetically shut that off and enter a state of rest and recovery. So we're losing our inner balance as human beings. And you see that with mental illness. You see that with all of these studies: anxiety, depression through the roof. Why is it? It's no mystery, right? So detaching from that and balancing that is the real solution, and having the discipline to align with what we are, instead of disregarding what we are and trying to fix it with continued, chemical inputs and quick fixes and these things that aren't aligned with our natural being. So I love Western medicine. I love what it does, but there's a ton of compromise in it, and it's completely lacking what as the science is showing is clearly the optimal path for human health and the optimal lifestyle. So my fitness is not my fitness, but I study what I talked about last time is Go to Movement, GOATA, greatest of all time actions, which basically through slow motion video for the first time ever, because cell phones didn't exist, people couldn't analyze these things. They kind of missed out on it. Is that they observed the best athletes of all time. They realized they move a certain way. They realized that the athletes with the most longevity, 80-year-old marathon runners, older people that can still move, all use the same patterns as those athletes. Then they realized that adolescents stand, move the same way, right? And all these principles that were inside this healthy movement. Then they studied indigenous tribes, and they said, wow, everyone in the indigenous who's connected with nature and less domesticated still operates in this primal animalistic way: feet straight, inside ankle bones high, hips behind the ribs, calm nervous system, deep breathing in through the nose, right? Why are we not that? And that's because of our lifestyle, our domestication. So then they realized, okay, wait a second, even animals move this way. We are animals. So they realized that this pattern, this way of movement, is the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. It's the way a blade of grass grows. It's the geometric pattern that nature uses. We are nature, and we're being pulled from that and manipulated, I guess, into living a rat race to nowhere. And in that rat race, we're losing sight of who we are, and we're imploding and destroying ourselves. Where's everybody going? Why is everybody going so fast? Why are we contaminating ourselves? What we need to do is be grateful, master the experience of what we're having now, and align with what we've been given, but we're ignorantly doing the opposite. And many people don't even know it or care because they're living in a low vibrational state, lacking awareness and lacking character to care about that. Right. So that goes into my next point, which this podcast is very excited about, because it's about passion. And it's like, what are we passionate about? What is this fitness, soil, health, Thunderdome? What does all this mean? And what is it? What's the underlying umbrella of this passion? And I look at it and I say, well, it's essentially to, reduce suffering, create a healthier lifestyle, and create a better experience for many people in this world. When I look at the way we're living, I think, and I always kind of have, even through younger education, been like, this doesn't really make sense. This is really suboptimal. Why is this the focus, and why is this the way we're doing things? And I think a lot of people don't stop and think that. And you realize when you do that, the deep dive, there's a lot going on that's creating that, and creating people to be pulled in and miss the bigger picture, and not think about these things, right? So you look at, like, well, what drives that passion? Why do I care about creating a healthier world and creating a better experience for people here? Well, I've gone through some health challenges myself, and I see other people, and I've always kind of drawn it back to empathy. A lot of people think I preach these things to look cool or to look smart. I'm not that smart. I think I have good depth of awareness, but I don't think I'm that intelligent. I don't think I'm that cool. That it's not a flex to go and talk about soil. It's almost like a weirdo. And at least in my world, people think it's weird. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I think it's truly driven by empathy deep down. I look at people that are born that weren't given a chance because of this health destruction. I look at people that are getting diabetes at a young age. I look at the depression, the anxiety, the unnecessary suffering that's being inflicted on society through self-destructive lifestyle. And then I take it a step further and I look at it and go, well, why isn't anyone doing anything about it? We kind of see, the science kind of shows us what's causing it and what we need to do, but nobody really does it. Instead, they support the self-destructive habits. So how to
Right.
to fix this, to have the passion to fix this, right? So the passion is, creating a healthier world, better experience for people here on Earth, more optimal lifestyle, right? That's driven by the empathy of seeing people that are born without a chance, seeing young girls that are just really overweight from the start, whatever it may be. There's a million scenarios, right, that are being caused by our lifestyle. And so then you look at what's the solution and how do you create that? And when you step back and you look at it and you say, okay, well, nobody knows about this. Everybody's lacking awareness in this. They're really focused on shit that doesn't matter, running a rat race to nowhere. So we need to reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with each other, reconnect with the earth. How is this done? Well, we got to elevate consciousness. We have to elevate awareness. And that is primarily done through certain practices, but one, connecting with nature and developing your nervous system, the computer, the stimuli, the stress response to shut off for you to be able to rest and recover and think into a deeper realm, right? Think deeper, pull back from the picture a little bit. And everybody's stressed out. And
Right.
like the fear response, the fear and stress response, a tiger jumps in front of you and you're walking down a trail in the woods, right? Tiger jumps up in front of you. What happens? Yeah. What are you focused on? The tiger. You're focused on that tiger. You're not going
Yeah.
to stop and think deeply and question how things are going and say, oh, you know what? There's a better route that way. You don't. You just kind of like, I got to get out of here, fight or flight, boom. So society right now is that tiger, that stimulation. It's pulled people in. And so we have to elevate consciousness, done through a balanced nervous system, healthier nervous system that's going to require connection to nature, healthier food, and all of these things. So then you take that and you say, okay, to achieve that, how can we up level our health as a whole and become more conscious? Well,
Right.
we need to live healthier, better lifestyles that are going to allow our nervous systems to react. Well, what's the main source or cause, and what's the most destructive thing in our health right now? Well, it's primarily food and medicine and stimulation lifestyle, right? Well, what's the
Yeah.
alternatives to that? There's not many. The alternatives to that right now are pretty much conventional medicine, which come with a lot of compromise. They come with a bit of ignorance to what we are in this world, right? So we need to start with soils. We need to start with soil. Everything comes from soil. You hear that Sadhguru quote. He talks about how every bit of life starts in soil. We are soil. We go back to the soil, right? And our soils become compromised. The biology is dead. The natural path is dead. And they're injecting chemical inputs that are upstream, causing so many issues with our own health, with the health of the environment, and the rest of it. So we need to unwind that. That practice needs to stop. and there needs to be an alternative, which is why Leighton's product
Yeah.
is so powerful. We need to leverage that concept, right? So this is the step: elevate people's consciousness, restore soils, build community, and regenerate it. And that is essentially what the Thunderdome comes from. So that is the passion.
Silly Lily always has just the a perfect quote, but global renaissance as well. Consciousness is the highest it's ever been.
Yes,
It's working
let's
on
talk on that.
action.
Yes, let's talking on that. So um, I said people's nervous systems are compromised right now more than ever, but there is a natural heightened sense in our consciousness. This is the awakening, which is why I think this project aligns with the awakening, right? And when I say the awakening, I'm not saying woke. People just they're like, well, this the woke stuff is what's killing our world. The the term woke and the awakening has been hijacked for that reason, right? And it's part of the manipulation that is creating self-destructive behavior, right? But the awakening is an astrological time frame where, due to access to information and due to the positive sides of where the society's at, we are now taking in more information, circulating more information, and elevating our understanding, learning at a more rapid pace than we ever have in the history of the world. So
Yeah.
we are heightening consciousness in that sense. There is a natural um, awakening that's happening, and it has a lot to do with technology. It just can't we just can't disregard our natural form here. So this project to me directly aligns with that. And I think people are naturally gravitating towards these type of things. 10 years ago, no one cared about regenerative agriculture. 10 years ago, um, anyone who talked about this, or anyone who talked about even conspiracy, anything like that, was kind of demonized. Said Western medicine was compromised, was demonized, because people knew less. Now that people know, they can see, and it's very clear that what this mission is essentially combating is a cultural manipulation that leverages suboptimal lifestyle to create profits and control for very few. Now, that is that is an observation. That is not a conspiracy. That is what's happening in this society, right?
Yeah.
It's not a society that's necessarily driven by primarily love and working together to help and create an optimal lifestyle here. It's more about, people are selling each other, manipulating each other, all these things that comes from the core, which is these corporations, the government, the deception, all the things that are happening that are empowering and allowing and regenerating this suboptimal lifestyle, which is the opposite of what we need. So here in this awakening, it's a self-realization because of smartphones and circulation of information. It's a self-realization that there is a manipulation that we need to acknowledge. And it doesn't mean we're not grateful for the way things are. It doesn't mean we're not grateful for technology in the phone.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic thing. And it's never a matter as much about that the external source. It's more about how we handle it and how we respond to it. The
Yes.
internal source. How do we use technology? If we can't leverage or control our own character, whatever happens on the outside doesn't matter. And we talked about this right before I got on. And I said, some people say socialism is the key. Capitalism is never going to work. It's going to implode. This and that. We need to change our government, and I just don't think that matters as nearly as much as our character and how our character will reflect in showing that. And so our heightened consciousness and character is the key. It's not capitalism, it's unconscious capitalism that's the issue. Everybody's conniving, trying to sell and get by and be themselves and take care of themselves. It's implosive. It doesn't work in nature. It doesn't work, right?
Well, yeah, because that's why you have a herd, or a pack. It's because as you come together in community, you gain more strength in numbers to fight off the predators. Now, I know I love to tell people,
Fantastic.
observe, but don't absorb. Watch what's going on, but you don't have to take that and
Yeah.
internalize it, because that's
Mm-hmm.
just going to stress you out. Realize what's going on, and do what you can do with what you have in your resources. And we mentioned that, like, I can't go out, put on a uniform and go and fight, but I can fight with my voice and my understanding and promote caring, sharing, and community, And
Pretty
that's
well.
what we're doing on this program. And that's why I appreciate the passion that you have brought here. You know, Perky, it's a wonderful thing that you are doing, because you are trying to create the atmosphere in the Thunderdome, in the communities, to bring the community together, to work together, to laugh together, to sing
Provide a
together, to
platform. Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's
Providing a
that's
platform.
wonderful.
And you hit the nail on the head there. And this to me is pretty much somewhat of the meaning of life, which is kind of like in a surface level. If you just look at it from basics and you don't get too deep into connection, um, then you essentially realize that, are we a product of our environment, or are we producing our environment? Are we
True.
allowing our external circumstances to dictate our internal being, or are we controlling our internal being to dictate our external circumstances? Our internal being, our external circumstances are a reflection of our internal depth of consciousness and character. And that's what's showing up in our society right now. And that's what needs to be reversed, which I think is kind of the natural wave. And I think, when it comes to the manipulation and the low vibrational infliction on society, I think that is breaking, and it has been breaking. And in recent years, primarily because of technology and where we're at, those powers realize that, and
Yes.
they know that there is an awakening, and that the natural human form, that love and light is rising, which is beautiful. And we're almost headed on a path to a golden era, yet everyone's doom and gloom. Like this is just done for. Everything's climbing. They have heightened their levels of infliction of fear and compromise and contamination and destruction, because they know their chains are breaking, and that the love and light is rising, and this awakening era in humans are coming back to their natural form. They're awakening. And so we see this resistance. And that to me was what COVID was. That's what the vax was. The whole thing, I think the whole thing exploited a lot of people's level of vibration, low vibrational lifestyle, this and that. Like, nobody wants to think that there is this corruption and deception and this government that's just doesn't want what's good for people. But when you do your homework and you observe why things are the way they are unbiasedly, you come to the same conclusion as everyone else. And everyone who cares about the world and cares about health has come to that conclusion and seen it. And people that care more about keeping reality the way they want it instead of the way that it is demonize those people, right? So which one's fear and which one's love? We don't want this. We're just trying to do what's best to create a better world, and we're trying to acknowledge the truth that need to be acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
And then you got people that don't want to acknowledge anything, that want to demonize those people and act entitled, like they're the good people because they follow the narrative, when in reality it's fear that's driving them to act like reality is the way they want it to be. We don't want it that way. We don't want this self-destructive way. We're just trying to fix it. Doesn't mean we aren't grateful for the world, for technology, for all these things, but we're going to acknowledge what's going on to create a more optimal lifestyle. These people are going to run with what's going on right now, right down this implosive path, because as Leighton says, why pull your head out of the sand? Just convince yourself that there's no such thing as deception here. The media is honest, the government's honest, these corporations and pharma are looking out for our health. But then you look at the whole campaign, they're giving people McDonald's and French fries if they get the vax. It's like none of it even ever a slight bit made any sense. And I'm sure that a lot of people inside it had their best intentions, but that doesn't mean that the core of it and what's been manipulating this society for a long time has the best intentions of people. In fact, the evidence shows the complete opposite. And if you can't even consider that, you're going to be a product of it. You're not going to produce your world. You're going to be a product of it. If you can
Yeah.
consider it, you can look into it, you can start producing the opposite, which is Thunderdome. We don't need to fix everything in a second. We don't need to get rid of pharma. We don't need to get rid of food systems, but we need to start to create what it is that we do need and start to operate in that direction.
Well, I think Silly Lily has a really good point here. The positive about the past few years is it slowed people down enough to actually live differently.
Yeah.
And the use of technology, we were able to explore more, find out more, and Like she says, I always questioned everything. Having that open mind and being willing to think that maybe everything that is out there isn't the truth, and blindly following, over the cliff is not necessarily the right way to go. Thinking for yourself, and
Yeah.
that's part of the connection with nature and health. And you mentioned it earlier. When you get into that mindset, when you're looking to get healthy, you're looking to buy healthier products for yourself, you start to see these things that don't really make sense. And that's when you seem to go like, hold on, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, this is backwards. And that's where I said, you know, and you just sound, people just want to make you out to sound like a douche when you talk about it, which is such an issue because it's backwards here. I said it exploits people in their low vibrational state of living. So here we are, like, these doctors coming out trying to give people messages like, hey, you might not know, there's a lot wrong with this situation that doesn't make sense. Even, some of the major vax companies came out and said that they didn't really test it. And they said, and people just waved it off. They didn't care, right? Like, if someone's going to come out and try to tell me these things, I'm going to listen and say, hey, if I think it's crazy, I'll be like, okay, but I'm not going to demonize them and censor them and shut them up and all of these things. It's like you said, everyone that does care and looks into it, wants to live healthier, kind of has come to these conclusions. And I can say personally that most of the people in my life that surrounded me that were very heightened in their sense and understanding of health and what we truly are and healthcare and the system,
Yeah.
they didn't want to get this. They were resilient. And the other people that were pushing it on other people are the ones that are consumed by complete nonsense. Netflix, not caring about lifestyle as much, not much healthy. I saw this as a common theme in my own life. And I'm like, there was an exploitation of consciousness and character. Those people pushing that vax on people. You got, a experimental drug being, which they're changing the definition of vaccine just to launch, and it's actually a gene altering injection. Um, and then you got it coming from a source that's been sued many times, created a lot of harm, that is shown to be very profit driven, at a time where the government and the media is clearly being deceptive and running a campaign that doesn't make sense, that's really pushing this on people. And just for questioning that, not to mention someone like myself who has zero really threat to the virus or someone's kids, just for saying, hey, if you're older, take the vax, but we're just not going to take it. These people have the entitlement, which is the character. Their lack of awareness is the same thing as the level of character. With low vibrational awareness comes low vibrational character. They're pushing it on us and screaming at us, and it doesn't even affect the transmission. It does not help them at all. They're just told to think that. They can't think for themselves, and they're exploited in this sense. No awareness to see the bigger picture, just the slice of the pie that society and media has handed them, and then the character to go on top of that to say, I follow the narrative, I'm entitled, I'm right, even if it doesn't make sense. It's not about truth. It's not about any of that. It's about what we're told. And it's more of a social security, like just a social aspect. They want to be accepted socially. It's fear.
Well, I know quite a few people that, they wanted to see their grandchildren or et cetera, et cetera. And they made the choice. And it does come down to choice. And even
Of
people that
course.
are aware, um, and didn't really want to, did it anyway. So, I think in all of it, it's a matter of, if we connect
Of
back
course.
to health, back to the biology, and back to the soil, that anything that they have done, we may be able to come back from that.
Yeah.
And that's my hope. So in the essence of it, how do you think we can bring more people to the realization that they need to come back into alignment with their own body, their own health, and the spirit that is in nature itself?
Well, um, that's a fantastic question, but I think it's all the things that we're doing right now, right? This is it.
Okay.
This is what we need to do. And I also think that, like we talked about earlier, it's happening naturally in this time frame. This is a astrological time frame where that is path. That is what's happening. People are elevating consciously, vibrationally. And if we can align with that, go with our heart and build things like the Thunderdome and go on podcasts like this and just continue down this path, I think that it'll naturally unfold the way that it's supposed to. And it's like, even with something like the vax, it's like, well, you can't promote the vax and not promote the healthy lifestyle stuff that we're talking about, right? And I'm not even like someone's right now is super anti-vax. Not. I said, if you're older and like you're threatened by this, yeah, I totally get it. Go ahead, take it. Like, sure, but no one's injecting me with that thing. And I'm not a bad person for that. And there's a lot of good evidence if you care about health for you to not do this. And then you look at the way that people are responding to those people and you say, it makes you not want to do it even more. It's like, wow, this is really bad. So
Yeah.
that's where I say it's a character problem. I'm not even anti-vax. They're going to freak out on me. It's like, I had too much of that. And it just, I think it exploited people. But to go back to that, it's happening naturally. We just got to keep on this path, but we have to act on it. And that's where the platform Thunderdome is. It provides the place for people like us to connect, alternative healers to come together, people that understand nature is our path. We need sunlight. We need connection to earth. We need less domestication in time, in boxes and chairs, in things that are destroying our posture. We need to reintegrate the primal aspect of our being in order to optimize our health. And so that's essentially what I'm trying to do with Thunderdome, is solve that.
So in what I hear that you're saying is we really need to go back, a couple of 100 years and get rid of the mentality of everything that we've got and the ease of life, and just reconnect at the root of who we are with the natural environment around us, the animals, the plants, and ourselves. We as a species have buttons that the marketing teams at these corporations have been playing with for decades, and coming to the realization that everything is marketing. What we're doing with this podcast really is marketing. We're just marketing a different reality than what other people are marketing, a different
Mm-hmm.
truth. Now, like Lily said, it's been a difficult few years for friends, families, coworkers. But yeah, we have to get through this together, and it's that togetherness that I think that you're really promoting. Now, I also know you do your business isn't necessarily the Thunderdome. That's your passion, where you're going with your life.
Right.
But let's tell people a little bit about your business, because maybe we can help generate a little bit of capital, because I know you do your business globally because you can do it
Yep.
online. So let's touch on that for a minute.
Yeah. So, like I talked about earlier, healing, health, and human performance is how I sum it up. So, I've worked with people that are in pain or sick and trying to get better, all the way through high level athletes, performance training. So, yoga, meditation, through strength conditioning, weights, all of it, mixed martial arts. And that's one thing that I will say about myself, as opposed to a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches stick to their craft and do it. And I've just moved at such a fast pace. I've bounced around. I've done so much of the crafts, and I've integrated it all together into one, and come up with this understanding of nervous system, connective tissue and fascia, muscular and skeletal system, and this approach to fitness that is extremely unconventional, and it's kind of contradictory to a lot of typical fitness. So I do coaching with that. I do training sessions. I call it Tiger Training. It's just $50 a session, right? Those are all Zooms. I used to have a gym, and when I moved to Florida, I got rid of the gym, and I've started to go online and virtual with all of it, because a lot of it's body weight and biomechanically based. Only like the high level stuff involves resistance and performance training, right? So I think it's something that's widely overlooked in fitness in general. So I do that, and I do Tiger coaching packages. My Tiger coaching packages, one of them is Tiger Recode / Rerun. So restoring people's innate physiological design and reestablishing their forward locomotive gait cycle. Recultivating that ability, getting people to run again, I think is one of the healthiest things you can do. And all of your training should be based around that. If you're high level intensity, you should be based around sprinting. And if you're lower level intensity, you should be based around optimizing the way that you walk and move forward. And that is where we'll get the healthiest version of ourselves. The byproducts of that will create the healthiest version of ourselves, because that's what we're designed to do. Our eyes are in the front of the head. We're forward locomotive beings. People are sitting stagnant, and when they become here and they slouch and they break their posture, or they're moving backwards all the time with conventional fitness, it's compromises our design. It's like a dog trying to kill shit with his paws. It's just not, it doesn't work, right? It's not it. We are designed to move forward. The more we can exercise that and keep the movement going, really the healthier we're going to be, right? So that's the Tiger Recode and Rerun. And it's very, very fascinating. Anyone who's interested in fitness should understand this biomechanical map, because it's very conventional to academic fitness, which is usually studied with a dead body on a table, right? I mean, it's just the way that the people have learned anatomy. How else are we going to learn what's inside the body, really? I mean, they do surgeries and stuff like that and x-rays, which is all great, but slow motion video and watching the way that it works together as one unit has really up-leveled our understanding of how the human body works and exploited some of the old conventional models. And that's what the Recode and Rerun is. And then it's Advanced Athlete is one of my coaching programs. So I take people that are athletes, high-level athletes, and recode them, but do it in a way that's not just healing based, or not just based around getting them back to rerunning, and it's more accelerated and performance based. And we'll kind of integrate, if they have lifting programs they have to do, if they have all these things, it shows them how to change those things and adjust those things and optimize those things, and integrate these drills that will help them fix the damage that anything of that is doing. And then there's Tiger Beautiful Being, which is a really interesting one. And this is fascinating because it's very unique. It's an entirely different approach to aesthetics and looks as far as fitness goes, because I think a lot of conventional fitness damages our connective tissue, it heightens our sympathetic nervous system, and it damages our energy field and our ability to glow. And I studied this stuff called resistance flexibility a long time ago. And I'm still to this day astonished at the power of this system that Bob Cooley created. It's a fantastic system, and he's tied all these fascial chains to different meridians and different emotions and different organs. He's tied it all together in the most impressive fashion. And to this day, the people that have practiced that a lot have benefited so much. My clients have benefited. I stretch myself with it. I stretch other people with it. And now I stretch it inside Nature's Mathematics because of Goda. So it's a whole nother, the tiger stretching is a whole nother level, to me, in my opinion, of that resistance proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitative stretching, dynamic proprioceptive facilitative stretching.
I won't try
so those
to
are just
repeat
big
that.
words. Those are just big words. I'd say make me sound smart, but it basically means dynamic contracted stretching. So you're engaged and you do an eccentric and an arcing motion, and that breaks the fascia. That disassembles fascia that's been bound together through sympathetic response, trauma, poor movement patterns, excessive sitting, something like that. Your body molds to its experiences. This is how we break those experiences, is through this stretching, right? And so when I studied that, the people that I studied it with had unbelievable posture in muscle tone and tissue, and they base it around tissue quality, right? So their tissue quality, they had different levels for it, from dense fascia to super tissue, they called it. And when people were in super tissue, you could just see the lack of restriction in their body. Flexibility wasn't even just the term. Perfect tone, perfect alignment, posture, access to ranges, ability to engage areas of their body. And what I noticed primarily with the people that were like this, when you look at them, you're like, what is it? I noticed that they were attractive. I said, damn, that's way more attractive to me than the crazy booty building, or like maybe someone's gone too far with fitness and they're just, they're round up like this. You can see the muscles come in too much. The fat is too dense. The molding of their body is slightly off. And so what I noticed with these people that had the perfect tissue tone posture is that they glow, because the fascia is an energy field. It's an electrotransmitter, right? It stores our memory. It's very, very associated with our nervous system. And when that binds in certain ways and stores trauma, it creates restrictions in the body that restrict your energy field. And so when you can get really, really healthy fascia and connective tissue, you can start to glow. Your energy field starts to glow. So these people that maybe even weren't as attractive, if they can get really healthy tissue, you're going to look at them and be like, damn, they're attractive. And that's because your energy is drawn to them. And so that's what the Tiger Beautiful Being is. Very unique. It's a very weird thing to kind of sell. So I haven't promoted it or pushed it. But it would essentially be recoding your breath and your nervous system, right? Getting that energy
Right.
field to relax, that parasympathetic balance, and then breaking your tissue apart with the stretching so it becomes healthier. You have more engagement, connection to areas of your body, and your tissue flourishes more. And then recoding your posture, movement patterns, and resting positions so that every time you move, it aligns and enhances that tissue, as opposed to creating compensations that are bad for it the way a lot of conventional fitness does. So, I think people's approach to just hammering fitness when it comes to beauty is missing a shit ton of it, and that it could be optimized in a much better sense, which is one of the main reasons people work out, right? It's, get healthy. So I offer Tiger Recode, Rerun, Enhanced Athlete, Beautiful Being, and then I'm working on something now that I put a pause on because of other work is going well, and I want to create this. I want to build this system, and so sorry, I read that. It was a really cool
Yeah.
comment. Global Renaissance is great. This system's called the Tiger Transformation, and I see it as a very, very deep and intricate level of fitness. And it starts with right now. There's 12 parts to it. It starts with Tiger breathing, recoding the nervous system. That's lesson 1. And you start a program, and every week you learn something new and
Right.
integrate it into the program so that at week 12 you have this unbelievably well-rounded system. And Tiger breathing into Tiger stretching, into Tiger recode, into Tiger rerun, and that's part 1. You've established your ability to run. You've recoded your forward locomotive gait cycle. You're now a
Okay.
forward locomotive being, your primal being. Then it goes into changing levels, creating a base and gaining leverage, week 5. Then it goes into swinging, striking, throwing, swinging, striking, throwing, anything like that. I forget how exactly those are. Swinging, striking, and throwing, we'll say. Then it goes into 3-dimensional movement, jumping, lateral movement, change of direction. Then it goes into transformational fitness. How do you take the principles of time under tension, muscle building, and integrate it into this map where you're not going to compromise your physiological design, right? You're not going to end up in reverse gear or damage your connective tissues. How can you,
Yeah.
gain muscle and do these things that fitness does without compromising your innate physiological design? Then it goes into high level performance, total performance, Tiger total performance, right? Then it goes into programming and progression, and then lifestyle. I think that's 12 either way. They got the general gist. I have it all written down, and I'm working on content for all of it so that not only do they go through this process, but they learn all of these things that I've learned that I think that can take them from here in their fitness understanding to here. I don't think you can go to college for 8 years and understand what that would show you and teach you from my perspective, because I've done
Yeah.
all of this stuff. And so that's the Tiger transformation. And at the end of it, you be a Tiger certification, you're a certified Tiger. Then there's advanced striking, advanced fitness, advanced this and that. And if you do that, you be a Tiger coach. And so this is what now I'm building. I'm taking away from the in-person as much, and I'm trying to build a product and a system to share this knowledge perspective that I have of entering through the nervous system and the connective tissue and fascia and muscular and skeletal system, restoring our innate physiological design, becoming less domesticated, and optimizing our being.
Okay, like that just is absolutely phenomenal. And you're this is still in development,
Yeah,
which
it
is
takes some
like
time. Mhm.
I know Lily said, "Whoa," like this is you've packaged it through everything and you've thought about it so succinctly of what has to start first. You
Yeah,
have to reach this before you can even push yourself to that. So why are you trying to start there? Come
yeah.
back and start here. And I think that is absolutely amazing.
Exactly, Ken. Exactly. And so even through breath work and fitness and a lot of things, people are strengthening compromised designs. So they're
And
It's
Yeah,
already
you can read
compromised.
that comment. Stop and read that comment because
Same
that's a
man
good
for what he
one.
does is guiding others to the yeah, absolutely. There's a passion right there. That's it, right there. I appreciate that.
Well, your whole body, when you started talking about this, I could see the fascia exuding out of you because it's that like at the next level, the passion in you. Just you could see it in your voice, or hear it in your voice, and see it on your face and in your body
Yeah.
posture.
A little bit of
It was
flow. Yeah, it's
perfect.
so it's true, and you know that's what we all. I think if we can heighten that in all of us, we'll make the world reflect. Our external world will
Yes.
reflect. We develop our internal being, and our external circumstances, current and future, will reflect in that. You know, it's it's some powerful stuff, and you know, a lot of people are dictated by their external circumstances and think that that's going to come first, but it should be the nervous system and the internal work first. That should be the primary. I tell you, when Tiger Breathing, where it all starts, they say, if you have goals, this is step one. I don't care what the goal is. This is it. If you can discipline yourself to do this every day, watch your whole life come together. Watch your desires come to you. Watch all these things happen. It starts with that breath work. It starts with that nervous system balance. It starts with that inner being. So this don't say, oh, I gotta do all these things so I can't get my breath work in. It's I gotta do my breath work so I can't do all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a personal choice that you have to make to commit. And I think that's the biggest thing is the lack of commitment. And hey, I'm perfectly imperfect because I have that lack of commitment myself.
Me too.
Um,
I got tons of flaws.
yeah, yeah, and being willing to admit it is part of the best part of it is going like, okay, I know I have to work on this, but then actually doing it. And I think having a program like you're developing where it as you can use it as a ladder, as a stepping stone, and take it step by step and understand it, bring it into internalize it to the depth that is necessary to keep it going and flowing.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Looking at it, that's the breath work is the priority. This is the priority. The internal being is the priority. I think anyone who's
Yeah.
successful needs that, and they're compromising their success and almost wasting it if they can't conquer that. In the sense that your health is wealth. Like people want to run a company. Well, I got to run the business. Well, what if you become compromised and you can't run the business? Right? So
Yeah.
wouldn't health become first? Like, got to make sure you're good, and then the business can run. So getting people to understand that. I think part of the reason was the previous generation struggled with it a bit because it wasn't as known and it wasn't as noted. Like just the way people didn't know that cigarettes were that bad for that long. You know what I mean? Nobody cared. Hell, now they're saying exercise. If there was a super pill, if there was a pill that just up leveled your health and made you feel amazing, if there was a super pill, it would be exercise, right? And so for a long time, that was not the standard. But there was also less domestication. So there's balance in that. There was less people sitting in front of screens, less kids playing video games for 12 hours and eating Skittles. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
but Skittles are good.
Skittles are delicious, but I ain't selling them. That's for sure. Yeah,
Perky, I know we could go on for days, let alone hours,
indeed.
brother. But I'm trying to keep the shows down to that hour and a bit.
Oh yeah, we were over. That was quick, huh?
Well, when you get talking about people's passions, time just disappears, and you're such a passionate man that it feels like it's only been 10-15 minutes since we started the show, and it's over an hour. And
that's that flow
thank you.
state, and that's like, I feel that in life. I feel that when I cater to my external circumstance, and I hope this provides value for people. So I'll just say this real quick. I hope when people realize that when they cater to external circumstances and they don't follow their passions, that glow that you see gets suppressed. And so it becomes compromised. Following their passions and doing what's hard inside of that is key to growth and achieving what you want and where you want to be in this world. Don't let the external circumstances make you lie to yourself. Follow your heart, follow your internal passion. And when I tend to do that, I just know that things start to go better for me. Even if it doesn't seem like it's the right move, I'm going to be less financially secure or this, that. Obviously, you got to be smart and rational with it, but that's when things really start to go right.
Yeah. And that is a brilliant statement to end the show with. And you guys take that home. Like Diane Falls is saying, great advice, James. And it
Thank you,
is.
Diane. Appreciate that. Appreciate you.
Okay, guys, we're going to end the show. I'm just going to let you know tonight at 6 p.m. PST, I've got Jordan Smeltzer, a contributor with Camp Compost. She's coming on to talk about her passion. Saturday's Mental Breakdown with DP, Saturday at noon on the Future Cannabis Project channels. And on Monday, I've got Brian with Earth Grower on the Passion Within. So you're going to want to check that out. And I'll be posting those on my IG, etc. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Perky, you are an amazing man. And we definitely are going to have you back on. I want to talk more about your tiger. And I want to focus strictly on the tiger and get more detail of what you're doing. So start writing, brother. And
I
no
got
going,
you.
I think I got them all. You're going to have
right.
them all, man.
I'll come with details. It's just getting it all mapped out right now. But right back at you, Ken. You're amazing, and this podcast is something that we need desperately. So keep up the good work, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man, and I appreciate you. And everybody on the chat, we appreciate you, and we will see you later today when we have Jordan on.